everyone, welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. This week we are closing out my Procreate holiday greeting series with a New Year's greeting. So what you see on screen is exactly what we're going to be creating together. I thought it was pretty appropriate to throw some mistletoe on here and say we're kissing 2020 goodbye. So we've got our mistletoe surrounded by some dotted line flourishing and then a little bit of hand lettering as well. We'll be using my paid set of watercolor illustration brushes for this along with my free dotted brush, and the color palette is free as always. So just tap on the link in the video description. You can have access to all of those. I'm going to create a brand new canvas that's 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels at 300 DPI. I do work in the display P3 color profile. If you're on an older iPad and don't have access to that, then the default sRGB color profile is perfectly fine. Okay, I've got my new canvas, and the first thing I'm going to do is set the background color. So come to your layers, tap on background color, and we're going to select this first blue color down here, and that's our background. And the next thing we want to do is go grab a reference image of mistletoe. So there's a few different places that I like to go online to grab reference images, and for this one, we're going to head over to Pinterest. All right, we are in Pinterest, and you can just do a general search for mistletoe if you'd like. I've pulled 3 of my favorites already and put them on my flower reference photos board. I'll leave a link in the video description to this board as well. And you can see up at the top, I've got 3 different types of mistletoe. This one I like because it's a big bunch of it, so it's pretty dense. So if that's a look that you'd want to go for, we've got that as an example. This one's kind of a good middle ground, and then this one's a little more sparse, so you can get an idea of all the different kinds. My personal aesthetic leans a little more towards the sparse, simple one, so that's the one I'm going to grab. So I'm just going to tap on the image and then hit the 3 dots up here, hit download image, and that will save it to your camera roll. Once it's saved to your camera roll, now we're going to head back into Procreate and bring it in. I'm back in Procreate, so I'm going to hit the wrench, go to the add category, and then hit insert a photo and grab that from your camera roll. Here is my reference image. I'm just going to move it up here, and we're just going to talk about it really quick. That way we have a game plan for what we're going to be creating. So I like dissecting what it looks like. You can see that all of the leaves on here are teardrop shaped, but they're really long and pretty straight here. Some of them curl just slightly, but I like the general feel of that slight curve, but most of them are pretty straight and they're just long and skinny. And there's some nice breathing room between these branches too. I really like how effective this is without it getting too dense or overcrowded, so you can get the message immediately that it's mistletoe. So with that in mind, we're going to sketch out our general layout. That way we have an idea of scale, because if we draw this too small to begin with and we feel obligated to scale it up, we'll be stretching pixels, and that can really quickly lead to blurry edges and a much lower quality image, even though we're working at 300 DPI. So by sketching out just our general layout, it can save us a lot of headache later on. I'm going to temporarily turn off the visibility of our reference image and create a brand new layer and just label this one my sketch layer. Okay, I'm going to grab black for us to sketch. So I'm just going to double tap where the black is, and that will select true black. I'm going to come into my watercolor illustration brush set and grab my sketching pencil for this. So I know that my layout's going to have a bar down here, and this is where I'm going to put in Happy New Year. Wow, that is not straight at all. Let's try that again. There we go. That's a little better. So this is where we're going to have Happy New Year. I'm going to have a little ribbon in the center that's saying Kiss 2020 Goodbye. And then I'm going to have my mistletoe kind of hang right around here. So that's a pretty good size. So it's kind of a large teardrop shape right here. And then I can add in, all my flourishes afterwards. And these ones are just super simple. Okay, so that is my general sketch. I feel like I could probably move this down. Let's see if I have Happy New Year right here, and I toggle this down just a little bit. I think maybe that's how I want the bottom part to go. So this will be, yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Okay, so now that I've got my basic thumbnail sketch all figured out, I can reduce the opacity of this just so I've got it back there so you can hardly see it. I'm down to 10% visibility. But that way I know as I'm drawing out my mistletoe, how far down I can go, how wide I can go, that feels good to me within the layout. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab my round liner brush for this, and I'm going to start off with my dark green color. And I've got 2 greens right here just to add a little bit of variety since our elements are pretty simple. We just have some branches, some basic leaf shapes, and a couple of berries. So by adding an extra color, it can add just a little bit of complexity that makes it more interesting. So I know I'm going to start off by coming down from the top because they're all going to join up here, and I'm going to put a little bow around them. So my bow is probably going to be right around here. Actually, let me add that to my sketch layer. That way I keep that in mind. These need to come like that. We've got our green color, we've got our round liner brush, and we're ready to go. So I'm going to draw my first line down, and these stems are a little curvier, a little softer to look at than your general, like, you know, branches that you normally see. One thing I noticed right away when I was looking at reference images is how soft these stems look. They're just kind of hanging from the weight of the different leaves. So I'll just connect a few here. I know that I always have a tendency to overdoodle, so I am keeping in mind that I want this to be simpler. So that looks pretty good to me. Let's add in those leaves. So let me just label this one dark green stem. And let's create a brand new layer right above it. We'll label this one dark green leaves. I'm going to grab my medium paint round brush for this. I still have my dark green selected, and I'm going to draw those long, skinny teardrop leaves. And it's okay if they run into each other at any point and overlap. That's totally fine. It'll kind of add to this watercolor aesthetic. So I'm going to put some coming off of the stems, because I don't want all of my leaves to just hang out at the base. I still want it to feel full, even though there's not going to be a ton of stems here. Okay, so there's our dark green leaves all completed. We can group these two layers together and just label them dark green. I'm going to create a brand new layer right above it, and this one will be light green stem. And let's grab our light green color, repeat the same process, and this time we're just going to be mindful of these openings. Okay, I've got my stems drawn in, so now I'm going to turn off my dark green group temporarily, that way I can see what I'm doing a little bit better, and I can turn off my sketch layer too, just so everything's super clear for me. I'm going to create a brand new layer, label this one light green leaves. Okay, let's return back to the medium paint round brush and draw those leaves in. Once you have your light green leaves in, let's group these two together, label this one light green. Let's turn on our dark green layer and see how it feels. I think that looks pretty good. I think I want my dark green ones to just be rotated just slightly. Now let's put in our bow. So create a brand new layer up at the top. Let's grab our pink color. I'm going to use my heavy paint round brush for this and reduce the size down to like 9%. So let's label this one bow. And the last thing we need to do is add in some berries. So I'm going to create a brand new layer right above the light green one, but underneath the bow. So create a brand new layer. Let's label this one berries. And I'm going to grab my white, so my lightest color. I'm going to grab my heavy paint round brush and sporadically put in these berries. And this is a pressure sensitive brush, so the harder I press on it, the larger berry I'm going to get. So I'm going to vary that up as I come through. So now our mistletoe is all complete. So let's group all of these together. So slide them over to the right, group. We'll label this one mistletoe. I've turned my sketch layer back on, and we're just going to drop in this bar down here where our message is going to be. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to grab my dark blue color for this, come over to your selection tool, which is the little S up here, and down here you're going to choose rectangle and make sure add is selected over here, and you're just going to draw a rectangle. And I always like making mine a little bit taller than my sketch layer because I can always toggle it down and crop it off. It's a bit more of a pain if you need to add on to it. So once I have that selected, I can just drag this blue color right into here, and now it's exactly the way I need it to be. So I can deselect it by tapping my selection tool up here, and now I can toggle it down if I want to by hitting my cursor and then just tapping a couple of times. If I turn off my sketch layer, I can see that my mistletoe is taking up the amount of space that I want it to, and I still have room right here to put my ribbon. The next thing I'm going to do is create the little ribbon that's going to go right above it, right in the middle. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. Let's label this one dark blue. On the layer above it, I'm going to do the exact same thing, only I'm going to use white this time. So grab your white, and we're going to come back to the selection and just draw out a rectangle, the size that we want our ribbon to be. And if it's not centered, that's fine. We can fix that after. So I think that looks pretty good as a rectangle, and drop in my color. Now it's filled, so I can deselect it. And now I can center it by selecting it, and then down here, make sure uniform is selected, and under snapping, make sure snapping is toggled on. And I can just drag it until I see that yellow hairline right in the middle. And that tells me that it's centered. And then my blue nodes just match up right here with that blue line. So that's what I'm looking for. And now I know it's perfectly centered right on this blue line and within my canvas at the same time. So the last thing I'm going to do is just cut into this a little bit with my eraser tool. So drag this down. My eraser tool I'm using is my Mono brush, and that's a free brush. And I'm just going to cut into this, and I can just erase this away. If you're familiar with layer masking, you could also add a mask. That's usually what I would do, but I wanted to keep this beginner friendly, so an eraser is also perfectly fine for something simple like this. So I just drew my angle down until I hit the change of color, and then I switched directions. We've got our little ribbon in there, and we can add in our messaging on our ribbon now. So let me label this one ribbon, and I'm going to create a brand new layer right above it, and I'm going to grab my dark blue color. And I'm also going to grab my sketching pencil for this, and it's going to be fairly small. The size that I'm using is 6%, and I'm just going to write Kiss 2020 Goodbye on this ribbon. Let me center that up a little bit. Let me label this one 2020. I can group these two together, and I'm just going to label this one ribbon. And then right above my dark blue layer, I'm going to create a brand new layer, and this one will just be labeled lettering. If you're not comfortable using lettering, you can definitely just add typable text to this. I am going to grab my white color, and I'm going to come back to my round liner brush. My round liner brush is at 10%, and I'm just going to write Happy New Year. Center this up just by dragging it over to the right until I get that yellow hairline. Now that we have our lettering in, the very last finishing touch for this, because it seems pretty plain without anything around the mistletoe, we're going to add some really simple dotted line flourishing. So in order to do that, make sure you still have your white selected. We're going to create a brand new layer up at the very top. We can group the lettering and the dark blue together just to keep everything super organized. I'll label this one dark blue. And up at the very top, I'm going to grab my dotted brush, and this is a free brush once again, and the size of this is at 8%, and I'm just going to do some really basic swirls. So I'll do a large one and then go the opposite direction, and then same thing over here. And then as it crops off the top, like right here, you can pretend that it keeps going and curling in. So I'm just going to fill in these pieces and then add in a few extra supporting lines here and there. So that completes our Procreate New Year's greeting and the last episode of this year's Procreate Holiday Greeting Series. Whether you tuned in for 1 week or all 6 of them, thank you so much for being here. Once again, links to everything mentioned in this tutorial are right in the video description. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of new tutorials just like this one in the future. For more Procreate tutorials and freebies, head on over to my site, every-tuesday.com. You can also find me over on Instagram. My handle is Every Tuesday. If you try this out and post it there, I would love it if you tag me. Thanks so much for watching. Happy New Year, and I will see you next week.